Ben Aris is the editor-in-chief of BNE IntelliNews. He joins us now from Berlin. Really good to have you back with us, Ben. The Kremlin's saying that it's wrong to suggest that Moscow has rejected the US peace proposal outright. In your view, what parts of this plan might be acceptable to Vladimir Putin, do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I should begin by saying that this is the best chance we've had to bring this war to an end. I mean, there's a real negotiation going on here. There's a plan, and the Kremlin said, look, some of these items are problematic, but it also ticked off on many of them. And I don't know, Vitkov is a businessman, Dmitriev, his counterpart, is a businessman, and they packed the plan with a lot of business deals, developing minerals, and Putin's also gone out of his way to say that's possible, and Putin even signed a decree in order to allow ExxonMobil, which exited after the war started, to return to Russia and do billions of dollars of business again. So, I mean, there's some easy things in there, which is the beginning. But as your correspondent said, as the Kremlin said, as even Ushakov has said, that the territories, the sovereignty over territories, that's the big sticking point. And again, Ushakov also said afterwards, look, we didn't talk about the wording of the points, we were talking in general. So I think what you've done is open the negotiations. There's a general agreement of like, these points are going to be okay. We have to talk about them, of course, but then some of the big issues like territories, about the size of the army, these are going to be much more difficult. But my takeaway is that the negotiations have begun and will continue, and there is a chance a deal will be done if some of these sticky points can be resolved.
As you say, Putin has again ruled out major territorial concessions. How central is territory with regards to Russia's negotiating position right now? And do you see any sign of flexibility as this process continues?
It's key, and I don't see much sign of flexibility. You have to understand what Putin's trying to do here. He's been criticized for holding so-called maximalist position, particularly on territories. But I think what he's doing is he's looking ahead to a post-Trump administration, that a new government, a new president could come in and could then restart this whole problem, start funding Ukraine properly this time, giving it the real weapons to actually take back those territories, including things like long-range missiles, which both Biden and Trump have been very reluctant to give Zelensky. So this is down the road. And what Putin wants is not just a de facto occupation and control of those regions, which he can then be attacked in later by saying he has illegitimately occupied them. He wants a de jure recognition, binding recognition by the international community that these things are Russian sovereign territories, so that there's no argument later, or makes it very difficult to restart the war. And I think he's coming to this from a position of strength. That, Prokof's, the battle you're showing on the screen now, is more or less over, is fallen to Russia, which is a major strategic victory. And the Ukrainian army is in collapse. The desertion rate is very high. There's a chronic shortage of manpower. That Ukraine is about to run out of money because the EU looks like it's going to fail to do the so-called reparation loans. And so there could be a macro crisis sometime as soon as February. And Putin's looking at all of this and like, I've no need to compromise. I just keep pushing on the war front and wait for people to concede, particularly this question of sovereignty over the regions. And it remains to be seen whether that will be done, because for Zelensky, it's an absolute red line. He doesn't want to give away any territory. The Ukrainian people do not want to see that happen. And so it'll be up to Trump now, if he goes along with the Putin plan, to pressure Zelensky into doing that. And even that's questionable if he can do that.
We now know that Ukraine's preparing to meet Trump's envoys in the US. How do you think Kyiv views this process, given that Washington is directly engaging with Moscow, something that the previous US administration had refused to do?
I think they're very worried. I think they're afraid of the deal being done over his head. And you'll notice, for example, Vitkov met with the Ukrainian delegation, Umarov, just a day before he flew to Moscow. And then there was in Geneva all of these variants, this 19-point plan put out by the EU. And I think none of that featured in the conversation with Putin. That Witkoff went with the original American plan and presented that. And in the talks with Umarov 2 days before, he said that there was a 6.5 hour discussion and there was no resolution. In other words, the Ukrainians were pushing their point of view. And I think Witkoff didn't take any of it on board, didn't include it in the deal that he offered to Putin. And you'll notice now that both the Trump administration has now classified future versions of the plan, and Putin and Ushakov both said that they're not going to release any details of what they're discussing. So I think that's all fairly clear indication that we're now talking about a purely American plan. And then the plan then would be to take it to Zelensky and give it to him as a fait accompli and say, take it or leave it.
Okay, Ben, Aris, we'll have to leave it there. Great to get your analysis as always. Thank you.
My pleasure.